guys. I'm Rick Dancer. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. I'm excited tonight. I've been talking with our guest tonight about getting her on here. She's out of the Pacific Northwest, and I met her at a farmer's market. I would say probably one of the nicest farmers markets I've ever been to in my life in Vancouver, Washington. And it's huge. And walked up to her, and she makes an amazing sipping vinegar. And so I started talking, but the story isn't just the sipping vinegar. I started talking to Jenny, and she had some really cool things to say. And I thought, I'm going to get her on. I got to get her on the show. So she's going to be our guest. We'll also have Bill London coming up a little bit later with news coming out of Portland. Remember, there was 6 people were killed, women, and some people were speculating it might be a serial killer. The police were saying no. Now it appears 4 of those murders are connected, and it all goes back to some clemency that was offered to one of the guy who's the suspect now was released from prison early. And we hear this kind of stuff happening over and over. So Bill's going to unpack that story for you. Our sponsors tonight are Chris Dental Family Dentistry out of Eugene, Oregon. They also do dentures. Dr. Bratlin's one of our biggest sponsors, and he loves free speech. He loves conversation. He likes people to get to know each other, and that's why he sponsors what we do. Other sponsor is Matt McCarroll, New Leaf Hyperbarics and Wellness. If you've never done hyperbarics, you need to try it. He also does light therapy. They do massage there, but Matt is one of those guys. It ties in really nicely with our show tonight because it's just oxygen. I mean, you're not using anything weird. It's just oxygen, and we're finding the more we look at alternative medicines, actually, it's alternative healthcare. That I find. I love acupuncture. I love hyperbarics. I love light therapy. There's a whole bunch of really natural things out there that can heal you, and you don't have to always be taking and helping big pharma. That's my message to you. And then our other sponsor is Fairway. Oh, I got the wrong one. Here we go. Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation. Greg Hinkle. This is out of Montana, but he also can do mortgage loans in Oregon, Washington, and Montana. He lives in Helena, and he also is one of our big sponsors. So let's get right to the show. Jenny, welcome.
Hey, good to see you again, Rick.
It's nice to see you. So this poor woman, I just said, give me your card. I'm going to call you about a podcast. This is so fun. So first of all, tell people, so she makes Wild Heart Sipping Vinegar. And I'm going to tell you guys, I use this in gin and tonics. I use it on salad. Like I put salad, like I'll make my salad and then I put on maybe a little bit of a dressing because I think a lot of people think salads are low calorie, but the time you put all that crappy dressing on it, you're just about eating a hamburger. So I just put this, I sprinkle this on there and oh my God, it's so good. So I don't know where to start with you. You told me on the phone, you've had 8 different businesses and you've been very successful at all of them. And they're all, Jenny, I don't mean this, and please don't take this the wrong way, but they're all kind of weird and different. I mean, it's like, you're like a very well-rounded girl.
I don't have an off switch, so I'm always open to trying something new. And so I've done everything from medical practice administration to transportation, warehouse, fleet safety management, consulting, direct sales, just all kinds of different things.
So what's the key for you? I mean, how do you develop the passion to do that? I mean, you're obviously an entrepreneur at heart.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, Rick, is that when I land on something that I enjoy, I figure other people probably will too. And so it's kind of like taking your hobby and monetizing it. And I just do that over and over and over and over. So, my husband and I like big trucks. So we bought one and all of a sudden we had 30 trucks and a warehouse and a rail yard. So it's just kind of the next goes to the next to the next. And, but the sipping vinegar one, this is probably the most fun that I've ever had. It's been challenging. I started it January 1st of 2020 and just, the world blew up. So it's been really, really invigorating to be pivoting and changing and figuring things out and how do I make this work? So it's a lot of fun.
How did that help? How did the the pandemic, the reaction to the pandemic that we had as a culture, how did that help you to do what you do?
Well, in a couple of ways. So first of all, I had my entire year mapped out. I walked away from six figures and a retirement, all my, full benefits to go make vinegars and sell them at farmers markets, And so it was like, oh my God. So I had the whole year mapped out. I'm kind of a detail oriented person. And then all of my events got canceled. And I thought, okay, how do I pay the bills? And I looked around at what was still functioning and open. And it happened to be those farmers markets. And I have a food. So therefore I was considered essential. We can say what we want about it, but it opened doors to me in markets that would have been next to impossible for me to get in without a couple of years. It takes usually, 2 or 3 years to get juried into some of these larger markets. So we went from ground zero to 20,000 bottles in 1 year, which was nuts. Yeah.
Now, where do you make it?
So we have a little place in Tenino, which is just south of Olympia, so halfway between Seattle and Portland. And
Okay.
I have a little shop there that had a commercial kitchen, but I don't need the stove and I don't need the microwave and all that. We have a great big cook vessel, and we're doing everything from bringing in the raw materials to cold aging to bottling and everything right in our shop. So we do this year will be probably closer to 30,000 bottles, which is a bunch. And then we make all of that there.
So why sipping vinegar? Tell me the joy of sipping vinegar. I mean, I obviously have become a fan, but people don't really, it's an old thing that's revived or what? How
Right.
was sipping vinegar used back in the day? I mean, did my mom used to take that for medicine? I kind of
Probably so. Yeah, my grandmother did. And so it's kind of funny. The original sipping vinegars were way up in the Arabian Peninsula. They called them a sarab. And it was just a way to acidulate fresh fruits and juices and things like that in a hotter environment and extend their shelf life, without refrigeration for a couple, 2 or 3 days. So the pH, the low pH, the high acid helped to stretch that out. So what they say is when the Brits went up and took over the whole known world and brought back all this stuff, one of the things they brought back to the UK was these sarabs. Well, by the time they crossed the pond to us in early colonial times, they became known as shrubs. So shrubs, switchels, those kinds of things, you took a little leather pouch and you threw in some herbs and some vinegar and some juices and some water and you chucked it on your back and out in the field you went. So apple cider vinegar in particular helps us stay hydrated. So in addition to like the old world becoming new, for me, this is like you were talking about in, how do we turn the corner from making pharma responsible for our health and we become responsible for our health and use food as medicine. So that's what really made me fall in love with the sipping vinegars is there's a creativity. There's just a ton of flavor combinations, which I love. That's kind of that culinary art. But it's just been a blast to expose people to something that's good for their body that they couldn't handle before. And now it tastes good.
When you say that we need to, I learned this when I had cancer. It's like all the doctors were telling me what to do. And none of it
Right.
sounded, honestly, Jenny, very good. And so my
Yeah.
wife is a researcher and she went in and started looking for stuff. And you learn through that I am in charge of my body. I mean, my body, my
Right.
choice. I totally believe that. And it's
Mhm.
like, but so many people, I think, I think we really learned this during the pandemic is the people that were having the worst trouble were the ones with the poorest health.
Right.
And we need, I think if anything that I've learned from that experience is America, we need to get healthy. And it doesn't mean
Yeah.
skinny and twiggy. It just means we need to
Right.
be eating and not, when I have a friend from Asia come here, they'll say, Americans are so fat. And,
Yeah.
and they see that because it's simple things that you can use like your sipping vinegar in different ways where you're putting something actually good for you in a seltzer drink or something, that's actually doing some benefit rather than having a Diet Pepsi.
Exactly. There's a lot to those, the fake sugars, the artificial sweeteners. Every time we introduce one, we go 5, 10 years, 20 years down the road, and we turn around and we look at it and we go, oh gosh, that caused all kinds of terrible things to the body. So a little bit, all things in moderation. So we use a little bit of natural cane sugar, but most of the sugars in our vinegars actually come from those organic juices that we use. So like this one is the blueberry thyme. That's the one that you and I
Oh,
talked about. You like the pear. The blueberry is fabulous, but it's organic blueberries, super rich in vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, all that. And apple cider vinegar, it's healthy for our heart. It's good for our digestive system. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's kind of the aspirin of the food world, but it tastes awful by itself. So that's been the joy of this, is to take that good for you apple cider vinegar and just kind of double down.
So are you surprised by the look? I'm sure you saw it in me, and my wife and kids, is like when you sipping vinegar and you had such a
Yeah,
sweet face, I came to your booth and then I'm like, what is that? And once you taste it, the look on
yeah.
people's face has to be, this is not what I thought.
Right. Yeah. All the time. And that's why, I have one of my big banners is what's a sipping vinegar. I actually have that URL, what's a sippingvinegar.com, because nobody knows what it is. But it's kind of like watching people experience something that is completely outside of what they would normally do.
Right.
That's the fun part. So, and what I love most are the littles, the kids that take a sip of it and their face just contorts up and they just want more, and it's great.
So, how many different flavors do you have of this?
Well, right now we have 12 flavors that are in our core varietals. So we have everything, from the pear, cardamom, rosemary that you have. We have a mango, we have a blueberry, a black cherry. We've got a lot of different ones that are customer favorites, but they're also, we use these in cocktails and in mocktails. We use them to cook with, and I have recipe cards for all of them because it's helpful to know what to do. But that core, 10 or 12, but then I just don't really have an off switch, like I said. So I'm up here in Squim at the Lavender Festival, and I brought a strawberry lavender vanilla that is just delightful. So I'm always making new ones.
So show them their seltzer. You got a new, this is your new thing, right?
Yeah, so this is new. We've been working on this for, gosh, where's my camera? There we go. We've been working on this one for about maybe 5, 6 years. Just trying to get to the point where we have all of our, ducks in a row and all that. But it's basically a canned seltzer, just like you'd get an energy drink, but super low in sugar. So instead of having a really, high sugar soda pop or something, it's just super refreshing. And that's what most of us have this vinegars in, is a sparkling water. So the canned seltzers, we started canning them about 2 weeks ago, and we've already gone through almost 500 bottles at just our markets. It's crazy.
So does the vinegar also settle your, is it like, I don't, and I may be really stupid and you just correct me, but is it like a probiotic? Does it do something to your stomach?
Yeah, so the apple cider vinegar is unique of the vinegars that are out there, champagne or rice or the other vinegars that are there, because of the pectin in the apple. It really helps with the digestive system. So there's prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic, and that's something your wife can research because those are all three necessary. And so you have a balancing of your pH, you have the probiotic, and then the postbiotic is how your body, it facilitates your body's elimination of the excess. So you get rid of a lot of things through your digestive system, but more efficiently. And then what I love is it's great for inflammation. So we were talking about, your stomach, but a lot of people that have like acid reflux, vinegar actually helps, because it's like your body's going, oh, we don't have enough, let's make a whole lot more. And having a sip or two of the vinegar kind of hangs up the phone and stops that conversation that your body's having with the acid.
Well, I tend to eat a lot of protein because I'm working out a lot. I'm just trying to
Right.
really get myself, nice and lean in what I'm doing. And sometimes it causes me to have a little bit of a stomach ache. I get like a little too much. I can feel like it. I'll come home and I'll either have a probiotic or I'll have a little sip of, and I don't do little sips of vinegar, but I take a gulp of that. And I
Right.
swear to you, it settles my stomach. It's
It
like,
does.
my wife looks at me like, what? Are you sure? I go, no, I know this works, and I do it and my stomach settles down. It's like, maybe once every 2 weeks or something this happens, but it's like, I've
Right.
got this. And did grandma used to give me vinegar? I think she did.
I bet she did. It was one of those things that it was available, it was inexpensive, and it worked. And so, I have a gentleman. This, I don't know if I shared this story with you, but if I could briefly, a
Yeah, yeah,
gentleman
yeah.
came to my booth in Vancouver, and I had met him there when I first started. A friend of his had given him a bottle of my black cherry pomegranate because we had talked about the health benefits of that particular one. And this gentleman he had MS. It was in a very inflammatory stage. to the point where the inflammation inside his esophagus was closing off. Doctors had given him
Oh,
tons of meds. They were just to the point where they were going to do a trach and put a feeding tube in and all that. And his buddy said, this vinegar lady told me if you just take some sips, this will help. And I thought, oh God, I hope your doctors didn't get mad. But he did. So he had a little sip. About a half an hour later, had a little sip, and he said about, maybe 2 or 3 hours in, he could feel things opening up. So he asked his doctor, his endocrinologist, he says, can I do this? And he says, it sure can't hurt. So he has been using that vinegar just a little bit every morning to help, relax that inflammation. And it was so cool. He came up to my booth and just gave me a big hug, and I cried, and he said, I think you kind of saved my life. And I said, well, I hope so. But, so there's been a lot of really fun stories like that are just beneficial.
well, I was just reading an article about pickles and
Uh-huh.
how those are really good for inflammation. And my
Mhm.
wife and I we were kind of, there's some vinegar obviously in the pickles and stuff. But the older I get, I wish I'd known. I think is that kind of why you're doing this? Are we finally kind of discovering you don't have to be a hippie or an eartho to understand that, what you put in your body matters? I mean, they just heard it sooner. I think
Yeah.
like God just screams out, okay, how you eat matters. And all the rest of America was going, oh yeah, McDonald's. And the hippies were
Yeah.
going, we're going to this natural stuff. And now all of us have kind of become
Right.
aware.
Yeah. I 100%. Yeah. Well, it used to be
So,
kind of nerdy. It was kind of marginalized, and now it's much more mainstream, and I'm so glad for it.
so you said that this one, this business, you've had 8 businesses and they've all been successful. And you obviously are pretty fearless, because starting new businesses, one is scary. Two is really
Yeah.
scary. So
Yeah.
you told me on the phone that this one, Wild Heart, stole your heart. Why?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's the first business that my husband and I have done that is really been kind of Jenny centric. And I know that sounds a little funny, but I'm going to be 60 in a year or two, and just having something that really embodied my personhood. Hospitality is my happy place. If I can have people over for dinner every night, I would, and I'd cook for all of them because I just love the culinary too. So this business just absolutely captured my heart because it is kind of me, jumping out of airplanes and climbing mountains and doing all those kinds of crazy things. That's what kind of led me to call it Wild Heart. But also, it has been grounding me in a way that nothing else has in terms of my vocation. It's been great.
How so? How does it grant? Because I think there's I'm 64 and I quit my career in 2008 and then have been doing podcasting. And it's so fun when you find the thing that makes you come alive. Um,
Yeah.
because I think there's so many people, Jenny, I have so many friends that are just working for retirement. It's like, I just can't,
Right.
they just are working and then you're going to retire and then they drop dead,
Then what? Yeah.
and yeah, and it's like this way, we're kind of doing, I think your 60s is the new 30 or something. I don't know, but we get to go in there and kind of do the thing that makes you, that where you go, I don't have to put up with this kind of stuff, corporate America or television commercials or all that. And if you have an idea, don't you love, what I love about being my own boss is when I have an idea, I don't have to run it by anybody to tear it down.
Right.
You
Right.
try it. Like if you want to try lavender and strawberries, who's going to tell you no? You try it. And if it sells, you do it. And if it fails, you just say, okay, we won't do that one again. And
Right.
I love that freedom.
Yeah. I think there's been something formative about this business because I've tried a bunch of different things and some of them worked and some of them didn't. But when you go, okay, I'm just going to go spend $10,000 on equipment, hoping that I can sell all the bottles that I make with that equipment. And then you do that again and again and again. And there are a lot of people, that self-employment is not for them. If you're afraid of sunk capital, you're in trouble. Don't be in business because you're going to
Yeah.
sink it sometime, right?
Right.
But, interestingly, probably what I think led to this business more than anything else, my husband and I, we had a couple of companies, we sold them and decided to just kind of hit the pause button. I was 45. He was 48, and we said, let's see what we want to do before we dive into a job somewhere again. And that led to him wanting to sail, which led to us buying a blue water boat, which led to us sailing a 33-foot boat from Olympia to Hawaii. And then doggone it, if
No.
we just didn't park there for a year, yeah, it was a blast. And so but that was our retirement, because we looked around at people that were 10, 15, 20 years older than us. And I was like, this is the golden time, that 30 to, I don't know, maybe 70 for me, 75, who knows? But there's those golden years where you can, and so you should. And if you wait till you retire, you won't do it.
My financial management company sends out the coolest letter all the time. And they're not like pushing you or telling you what to do, but they did. And for a financial company, I thought it was pretty funny. And they're just, it's not like, Schwab or whatever. This is like a company that works with you. And the letter was, if you're waiting to travel and do things when you're done, when this is over, you're waiting too long. Because when you get to 80, you're probably not going to feel like getting on a plane and putting up with all the hassles of flying. So they said between 60 and 75, this is when you really need to be spending your retirement dollars on the things you want to do, because at some point it's not going to be there. And I think my wife and I don't mean this in a bad way, but we were fortunate because her dad died at 64 and her mom at 69. And right after he retired. So we saw them save everything they had for retirement, and then they never got it. So we looked at that and what they left us and said, okay, here's our gift. Now we're going to go do it the other way, because they did the best they could. They did what they thought was right. But I love your style. That's what I think is really cool. Plus, is that why you smile so much, do you think? Is that why you're a happy person?
Well, you have two options. You can be happy or you can be unhappy. And that's really what it comes down to. And I just choose happy. So I find that
it's a choice. It's a choice. You believe it's a choice.
Absolutely. I mean, there's going to be stuff that happens. This last year, my husband and I navigated the death of both of his parents. Actually moved a 91-year-old into our home for almost 9 months, and full-time care for him while we were running 2 businesses. And that was not happy, but we made the best of it. We went out and bought him a wheelchair that, could go, a scooter that could go, and we put big quad tires on it so he could navigate our property. And at 91, he's out there, running around with the kids. It was awesome, but we chose to make that chapter of his life as good as possible, which made us happy. So, it's a give and take.
So does it feel good, like when you're making sipping vinegar, because it's something that's healthy for people? Like, like you're going, because I'm not knocking cookies, because I like cookies too, but you go to the little bakery, here, everybody's buying donuts or something. And yes, somebody puts love into it. There's got to be a donut maker too. But when you're doing something that really is like what you're doing, that has to feel like you're, in your own little, maybe that's why you feel like you've kind of, this is Jenny centric, because you are truly helping people to have better health, which is the biggest gift that we could have after two to 3 years of pandemic crap. Did we all learn the most important thing is not our bank account or how much money we have or what kind of car we drive or even what kind of degree we had? The people that mattered were the contractors, the plumbers, the electricians. All those people were the people we needed the most in our lives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The whole world kind of went like this.
Yep. And I'm glad. I think it was long overdue to stop focusing on, well, what do they call it? The paper ceiling, all the businesses that we've had, and all the stuff that we've done. Neither of us went to college. We just decided we opted for a different course, and that's not for everybody, but it was definitely for us. And you can tear that paper ceiling just right out of the way if you do it right. And I just didn't look for work at large corporations because, my skills weren't valued in that. So I just turned them to my own and did our own thing, and we've had a blast.
So how many kids you have?
We have 2, and I've got 2 granddaughters and 1 on the way.
So what do you tell them about your best advice for how you live your life?
For our kids, a little different than I would with my grandkids. Our son actually is our operations manager at our distillery. So he works with us and has worked with us in our other company, our trucking company. Our daughter, she just bless her heart, she just has made her own way and doing great. And so not a lot of advice needed with either of them. But the granddaughters, their favorite thing when they come to see Grammy and Papa, they come to work. I mean, it's like I'm working up the quad, I'm taking the quad up the trails, and we're trimming brush, or we're, picking things up, or we're labeling bottles and things like that. So work is fun, and fun is work if you do it right. And I think that's the biggest thing. That, if you're working and you can't wait to leave, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, that's profound. Yeah, and it's like you can't make you can't always make your hobby into your job, because then it becomes a job. But if you
Right.
love what you're doing when you're working, and you have a purpose, then
Mhm.
it makes it all worth it. And I think I get so many 20 somethings, on my pages and stuff. And I love this question, Jenny. They'll always say, what would your 64-year-old self tell your 20-year-old self? And my answer is always the same. Rick, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. Get your nose to the grindstone. Try hard at everything. Don't look at anything as a failure, and just move forward. And I'm kind of like my family. My kids raised pigs for 4-H when they were little, and pigs are a super smart animal, but they have their eyes on the side of their head. And if you try to guide a pig into an area one way, it'll never do it again. I mean, it always is going to challenge you. So they make a board with a handle on it, and you put it over their eyes, and you walk them so they can't see where they're going. And the secret is, don't let them stop, because you'll get them in the trailer sooner or later, but you may have to take this weird path to get them there. But once they stop, you got 280 pounds with little short legs, and you try to budge them and they won't move. And I feel like that's me. I have to have blinders on so that I can be guided by God or whoever you believe in, but I'm guided to my place. And the key is, I feel like if God were speaking to me, he'd be going, don't stop, Rick. Even if you go the wrong direction, it doesn't matter. Just keep moving, and I'll get you back to the trailer.
That's awesome. That is awesome. One of my favorite sayings is to live out loud and on purpose. And I think that speaks to it, that we can do a lot of different things. But, sometimes when I'm doing my vinegars, I'm down at my shop at 3 a.m, and I'm starting everything up, and I'm putting together big pieces of equipment. And I swear my next tattoo is going to be a tri-clamp fitting, because I use a dozen of them on everything that I do. But that part of it is not fun. I don't enjoy mopping the floors and cleaning up and sanitizing and all that. But every once in a while, when I start to get kind of cranky about having to do that, when I really just want to go out to the markets and play, I always stop myself and say, you don't get to fuss. You chose this, so just do it. But it's pretty easy to go, oh, my boss is this, or my job is that. It's like, I chose this, so I really can't complain.
Well, and don't you? I highly recommend talking to yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I do.
I do too. I'm always like, I get up and I just go, Rick, what are you going to do? I mean, what, you're going to not show up and do it? Or like something doesn't work out, or my guest doesn't get on or something. It's like, you have 30 minutes to fill. You're perfectly capable of talking for 30 minutes. Just get on and do your job. And then and you move on. And what happens a lot of times, Jen, I'm sure just like you, those sometimes turn out to be the best shows, is because you're in the place, the zone. Yep. Well, I am so glad that I walked up to your booth, and for many reasons, but I'm glad to have you on. And we were going to have my news guy come on later, but I think I'm just going to leave the show like this so that people can see it just with one thing in there, and you can pass it around to your friends and all that kind of stuff. Because we filled a half hour, and it's life lessons, and those are what we need to hear. And I love it. Yeah. Jen, thank you so much. And how do people get a hold of you? Can you tell people, how do they get a hold of you? Because anybody, I'm in Montana, but you guys can ship, right?
Oh, yep. We ship all over the country. It's wildheartsippingvinegar.com.
Okay. And trust me, guys, just pick a flavor that sounds good. You're not going to be disappointed. All right, Jenny, good to talk to you. Thank you for joining me. Go back to your show, and good luck with the seltzer.
Thanks. All right. I appreciate it. I'll send you some.
Oh, yeah. That'd be awesome. All right. I'll see you later.
All right.
All right. Now you guys see why I picked her. I'll tell you. And it's just something new and different. And I am putting it on everything. And I got to get the blueberry one. But there's so many different flavors, and it's just trying something different, trying something new in your life. And you heard what we were both talking about. I think that's so important, whether you have a business or not. But this is your life. You get one shot at it, and you can do it following everybody. You can do it. You can play it being a sheep. A long time ago, I had this dream. I woke up and had this dream, and I saw a fence around the outside, a huge fence, and then all this cluster of people in the middle, and that was culture. And then there were these little offshoots of little groups around here like that, and I was on the edge over on this fence, and I was standing looking at the fence, and this big white horse comes up and looks at me, and then kind of shakes its head and signals me to go off and, like, come follow me. And it's like, but there's a fence. And it kept doing that. And finally I reached out, I touched the fence, and it disappeared. The fence was never there. And all those people were clustered in the middle, being safe and living their lives in safety. I don't think we're supposed to live in safety. Now, I'm all for helmets and seatbelts and all that kind of stuff. There's some smart things to do, but life isn't supposed to be safe. And we've raised a whole generation now of kids that we're so worried about their safety. What about the risk? We should be teaching our children to take risk, sensible risks. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. My personal opinion. Not trying to tell you how to parent your kid, but I'm just saying there's nothing safe about life. And if it is, I don't want to do it. I like living in risk. So take a risk. I had a lady write me the other day, and she said, I see all the exercises and stuff you and your wife are doing, and I weigh 350 pounds. And I said, I'm just going to get up. If Rick can do that, I'm going to go walk around the block. Now she's walking 5 miles. And she hasn't lost a ton of weight, but that wasn't the purpose. It was the risk of going out and being that heavy and walking the streets, and she did it. And she feels better, and she's getting healthier. Her blood pressure came down because she took a risk. That's it for now. Man, that was fun. I'm off for a few days. I'm going off with my wife. We'll be back on Tuesday, our regular day. But my anniversary is on Sunday. 40 years I've been married to the same woman. 40 years. And I wouldn't change anything. So we're going to go do what we normally do. Crazy stuff, paddleboarding and mountain biking in our 60s. Taking a risk. You only get one life. And you, as Jenny said, get to choose how to live it. I'm Rick Dancer. Thanks for joining us. Thank our sponsor, Cristiano Family Dentistry, and Fairway Independent Mortgage, Greg Hinkle, and New Leaf Hyperbarics and Wellness Center. We couldn't do this without you. Good night. Oh, share it on your page, but don't tell Facebook I told you that.